Listen, before this day ends, before this moment passes, I want you to pause for a second, because what you're about to hear is not ordinary. It is not just another speech, not just another message. It is a divine reminder. Today is Saturday, the 14th of March, and someone listening right now is tired. Someone listening right now has been praying, waiting, hoping. Maybe you've been asking God, Lord, when will my miracle come? When will my situation change? And I feel this strongly in my spirit. God has not forgotten you. There is a powerful truth written in Scripture. When faith rises, when gratitude fills the heart, when we truly listen and open our spirit, heaven begins to move. Miracles are not accidents. They are invitations for those who believe. I once heard a story of a woman who had nothing left but faith. Her situation looked impossible. Doctors had spoken, bills were piling up, and hope seemed far away. But one Saturday morning, she did something simple. She stopped complaining, and she started thanking God for what she had not yet seen. And that day, something shifted, because gratitude unlocks doors that fear keeps closed. Faith opens pathways where the world sees walls. So today, as you listen to this message, I want you to do 3 things with me. Believe deeply, listen carefully, and give thanks boldly. Because when faith speaks, when gratitude rises, and when the heart is open, God begins to move. And before this message ends, I believe many of you will feel something change inside your spirit. Hope will rise again, peace will return to your heart, and you will remember this truth. For the one who believes God can turn an ordinary Saturday into the beginning of a miracle, faith is not simply believing that something might happen. Faith is the deep, unshakable confidence that God is already working even when nothing around you seems to change. Many people think miracles happen randomly, but in the spiritual realm, there is a principle. Faith activates what heaven has already prepared. When a person begins to trust God with their whole heart, something begins to shift in the unseen world. Think about the moments in life when everything looks impossible. The doors are closed, the answers are silent, and the future feels uncertain. In those moments, the natural response is fear, worry, and doubt. But faith speaks a different language. Faith looks at the same situation and says, God is still in control. Faith does not wait for proof before believing. It believes first, and then the proof begins to appear. Many years ago, there was a believer who faced a situation that seemed completely hopeless. Every report they received was negative. Friends were sympathetic but quietly convinced that nothing would change. Every day looked the same, and every night ended with the same unanswered questions. But instead of surrendering to despair, this person made a decision. They chose to believe that God was greater than the circumstances. Each morning they began with a simple prayer. Lord, I trust you, even if I cannot see what you are doing. At first, nothing seemed different. The problems were still there. The obstacles remained, yet something powerful was happening inside their heart. Fear slowly began to lose its grip. Peace started replacing anxiety. Their faith was not loud or dramatic, but it was steady. Faith often grows in quiet places. It grows when a person refuses to let doubt have the final word. It grows when someone continues to pray, even when answers seem delayed. Every time you choose to trust God, instead of giving in to fear, your faith becomes stronger. And when faith grows, it begins to release spiritual power into your situation. There is a mystery in the way God works with faith. Heaven responds to it. When a person believes God's promises, it creates an atmosphere where miracles can happen. Faith is like opening a door that has always been there but has remained closed because fear kept it locked. The moment faith rises, the door begins to move. Some people wait until their circumstances change before they decide to believe. They say, when I see the miracle, then I will trust God. But faith works in the opposite direction. Faith believes before the miracle appears. It declares hope in the middle of uncertainty. It stands firm when everything else feels unstable. Imagine a seed planted in the soil. For days or even weeks, nothing appears above the ground. To someone watching from the outside, it might look like nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, life is already growing. Roots are forming, strength is building, and the moment will come when the seed finally breaks through the soil. Faith works the same way in a believer's life. Many miracles begin underground, hidden from human eyes. God starts working in ways we cannot see. Situations begin aligning, hearts begin changing, and opportunities begin forming long before the visible breakthrough arrives. This is why faith must be protected. Doubt can slowly weaken it if we allow negative voices and fearful thoughts to dominate our minds. The words we speak and the thoughts we entertain have tremendous power over our faith. When we constantly repeat fear, our confidence begins to shrink. But when we remind ourselves of God's promises, faith begins to rise again. Faith also grows through gratitude. When a person thanks God even before the answer comes, it demonstrates deep trust. Gratitude declares that God is faithful regardless of what the current situation looks like. It shifts the focus from problems to the power of God. There is something extraordinary about a heart that believes without conditions. It does not depend on perfect circumstances. It does not collapse when delays appear. Instead, it stands firm with the quiet assurance that God's timing is always greater than human understanding. Throughout history, many of the greatest miracles began with ordinary people choosing extraordinary faith. They were not perfect individuals. They had fears, questions, and moments of weakness like everyone else. But in the middle of their uncertainty, they held on to one powerful conviction: God is able to do what seems impossible. When faith begins to live inside the heart like that, it changes the way a person sees everything. Problems no longer look permanent. Delays no longer feel like defeat. Even the darkest seasons begin to carry a quiet expectation that something good can still emerge. Gratitude has a quiet but powerful strength. It changes the atmosphere of the heart and opens doors that frustration and complaining can never unlock. Many people look at gratitude as a simple act of politeness, something we say when things are already going well. But true gratitude is much deeper than that. It is the ability to thank God not only for what we have already received, but also for what we are still believing for. Life often presents moments that test the human spirit. There are seasons when prayers seem unanswered and circumstances feel heavy. In those moments, the natural reaction is to focus on everything that is missing or everything that is wrong. The mind begins listing problems, and the heart slowly fills with disappointment. Yet gratitude invites us to see life through a different lens. Instead of staring only at what we lack, gratitude gently turns our attention toward what God has already done. A grateful heart recognizes that every breath, every new morning, and every opportunity is a gift. Even in difficult situations, there are still signs of grace surrounding us. Sometimes they are small and easy to overlook. A kind word from someone, the strength to keep going, a moment of peace in the middle of chaos. When we pause to acknowledge these gifts, something begins to shift within us. Gratitude has the ability to transform the way we experience life. The same situation that once felt overwhelming can begin to look different when viewed through thankfulness. Instead of seeing only obstacles, we begin to notice possibilities. Instead of feeling trapped by fear, the heart slowly opens to hope. There was a man who once faced a period of deep struggle. His plans had fallen apart, his resources were limited, and every day seemed filled with uncertainty. For a long time, he carried a heavy sense of frustration. He constantly asked why things were not changing and why his efforts seemed to lead nowhere. The more he focused on his problems, the more discouraged he became. One morning, he decided to try something different. Before asking God for anything, he simply began to thank Him. At first, it felt awkward because his situation had not improved. Yet he continued, thanking God for the strength to face another day, for the people who still cared about him, and for the belief that his life still had purpose. As the days passed, he noticed a surprising change. His circumstances had not yet transformed, but his attitude had. The heaviness that once filled his thoughts began to lift. Gratitude created space for peace. It reminded him that his life was not defined only by what was going wrong. There were still blessings present, and recognizing them renewed his courage. Gratitude does something powerful in the spiritual life. It reminds the heart that God is faithful even in seasons when answers seem delayed. Instead of measuring God's goodness by our immediate results, gratitude chooses to trust that His work continues beyond what we can see. When a person practices gratitude consistently, it reshapes the inner world. The mind becomes less focused on fear and more aware of grace. The heart becomes softer, more patient, and more hopeful. Gratitude begins to influence how we speak, how we think, and how we respond to challenges. There is also a mysterious connection between gratitude and blessing. When people acknowledge what they already have, they become more aware of opportunities and possibilities around them. A thankful spirit naturally attracts joy, peace, and renewed energy. It creates an environment where faith can grow stronger. Complaining closes the heart and narrows our vision. It traps our attention inside problems and makes them appear larger than they truly are. Gratitude does the opposite. It expands our awareness and reminds us that God's goodness is not limited to a single moment or a single answer. The power of gratitude becomes especially meaningful when practiced during difficult seasons. Anyone can give thanks when life feels comfortable, but gratitude in the middle of uncertainty reveals deep trust. It declares that God's presence remains constant regardless of circumstances. When the heart begins each day with thankfulness, it sets the tone for everything that follows. Gratitude slows us down long enough to notice the quiet gifts hidden inside ordinary moments. It invites humility by reminding us that much of what we enjoy in life comes not from our own strength, but from grace. Over time, gratitude becomes more than a habit. It becomes a way of seeing the world. Instead of waking up with anxiety about what might go wrong, the heart awakens with awareness of what is already good. Instead of ending the day with regret, it closes with appreciation for the moments that brought meaning and growth. In this way, gratitude gently opens doors within the soul. It creates space for peace where worry once lived and allows hope to rise even when the path ahead remains uncertain. In the noise of everyday life, one of the most powerful spiritual practices is learning how to truly listen. Many people speak to God through prayers, requests, and hopes, but fewer people take the time to pause and listen with an open heart. Listening to God is not about hearing an audible voice in the way we hear another person speaking. More often, it is a quiet awareness, a gentle direction within the spirit, a deep sense of peace guiding our thoughts and decisions. Modern life moves quickly. Our minds are filled with responsibilities, worries, and constant information. Phones ring, messages appear, and our attention is pulled in many directions at once. In the middle of all this activity, it becomes difficult to hear the quiet guidance that God offers. Yet God often speaks in stillness rather than in noise. When the heart slows down and becomes attentive, a different kind of clarity begins to appear. Listening to God requires humility. It means acknowledging that our understanding is limited and that divine wisdom is greater than our own plans. Many times people rush ahead with decisions based only on logic, fear, or pressure from circumstances. Later, they realize that something felt unsettled deep inside them, a quiet warning that they ignored. That inner sense is often where God begins to guide us. There was once a young man facing an important decision about his future. Two opportunities stood before him, and both seemed promising. Friends and family offered advice, each person sharing their opinions about which path he should choose. The more he listened to different voices, the more confused he became. Every suggestion sounded reasonable, yet none of them brought peace to his heart. One evening, he decided to step away from the noise. Instead of asking more people for guidance, he spent time in quiet prayer. He did not rush his words or fill the silence with endless requests. He simply spoke honestly to God and then allowed himself to sit in stillness. At first, his thoughts continued racing, jumping from one possibility to another. Gradually, as he remained quiet, the storm of thoughts began to settle. In that silence, he noticed something subtle. One of the options that had once seemed attractive no longer felt right in his spirit. The other choice, which had previously appeared uncertain, now carried a sense of calm assurance. It was not dramatic or emotional, but there was a gentle confidence forming inside him. That quiet clarity helped him make a decision he later realized was exactly the direction his life needed. Listening to God often brings that kind of peace. It does not always remove every question or challenge, but it replaces confusion with a steady sense of direction. When God guides the heart, there is a deep calm that remains even when circumstances are not perfect. This kind of listening also requires patience. People sometimes expect immediate answers to every prayer, but spiritual guidance rarely works like a quick transaction. Just as relationships between people grow stronger through time and attention, our awareness of God's guidance grows as we regularly spend time with Him. The more we practice quiet reflection and prayer, the more sensitive we become to His direction. Another important part of listening is learning to recognize the difference between fear and guidance. Fear usually speaks with urgency and pressure. It pushes us to act quickly, often warning us about everything that might go wrong. God's guidance, however, carries a different tone. Even when it challenges us to step into something new, it is accompanied by peace rather than panic. When people begin listening carefully to God, their decisions gradually become wiser. They learn to pause before reacting, to reflect before speaking, and to consider whether their actions align with the values of love, faith, and integrity. This process does not make life free from mistakes, but it greatly reduces the confusion that comes from acting without spiritual awareness. Listening also deepens a person's relationship with God. Prayer becomes more than a list of requests. It becomes a conversation that includes both speaking and attentive silence. Over time, this practice builds trust because the believer begins to recognize how often God quietly leads them away from harm and toward growth. Many moments of guidance arrive through simple impressions, a sudden understanding during prayer, a strong sense of peace about a decision, or even wisdom discovered while reading sacred teachings. Sometimes God's direction appears through unexpected encouragement from another person or through circumstances that gently redirect our plans. The more we listen, the more we realize that God's guidance has been present all along. It has been quietly shaping paths, opening opportunities, and protecting us in ways we did not fully notice. Listening with an open heart allows that guidance to become clearer and stronger in everyday life. Many people believe that extraordinary miracles only happen on extraordinary days. They imagine that a breakthrough must arrive with dramatic signs, sudden announcements, or moments that feel completely different from the ordinary rhythm of life. Yet God often works in ways that surprise us. He can take an ordinary day, a day that looks no different from any other, and transform it into the beginning of something completely new. A normal day begins quietly. The sun rises, people wake up, and routines unfold just like they did yesterday. There are responsibilities to handle, worries that follow us into the morning, and plans that seem predictable. At first glance, nothing about the day feels special. It looks like just another page in the long story of life. But in the spiritual realm, even an ordinary day can carry hidden possibilities. Many breakthroughs in life do not start with visible excitement. They begin with a simple moment, a prayer whispered in faith, a decision made with courage, a heart that chooses gratitude instead of complaint. Those small moments may appear insignificant, yet they often become the turning point that changes everything that follows. There was once a woman who had spent years hoping for change in her life. She had prayed, worked hard, and waited patiently, but the results seemed slow. Every morning felt similar to the last. She woke up with the same responsibilities, the same unanswered questions, and the same quiet hope that maybe something would eventually shift. One particular morning did not appear different from the others. The sky looked the same, the house was quiet, and her routine unfolded as usual. Yet something inside her heart was different that day. Instead of beginning with worry, she began with faith. She chose to believe that even if nothing seemed to change immediately, God was still working behind the scenes. That simple shift in her attitude changed the way she moved through the day. She spoke with more kindness, she carried more patience, and she treated each moment as if it mattered. Opportunities that she once overlooked suddenly became visible. Conversations that once felt ordinary started opening new possibilities. By the end of that day, something unexpected had happened. A connection was made that later opened a door she had been waiting for. What seemed like a random interaction turned into an opportunity that changed the direction of her life. Looking back, she realized that the breakthrough did not arrive with thunder or dramatic signs. It came quietly through an ordinary day that she chose to face with faith. This is often how God works. He does not always wait for perfect conditions before beginning a miracle. Instead, he moves within the everyday moments of life. A simple day can become the starting point of transformation when faith, gratitude, and openness guide the heart. Many people overlook this truth because they are waiting for something dramatic before they believe that change is possible. They imagine that the perfect moment must arrive first. But sometimes the miracle begins the moment someone decides to trust God, even when nothing around them looks different. An ordinary day can hold incredible potential. It might be the day when a new idea appears in your mind, when a conversation leads to unexpected guidance, or when an opportunity quietly reveals itself. It might also be the day when your inner strength grows, preparing you for a blessing that has been forming for a long time. Faith changes the way we approach each day. Instead of seeing routine as meaningless repetition, faith sees it as a series of opportunities where God's presence can appear. Every interaction, every decision, and every moment of patience becomes part of a larger story that God is shaping. There is also a beautiful mystery in how God's timing works. What feels like a normal Saturday, Monday, or any other day might actually be the exact moment when the pieces of your life begin to align. Things that seem delayed or disconnected suddenly come together in ways you could not have planned. When people carry faith into ordinary moments, they begin to notice how often blessings appear in unexpected forms. A problem leads to wisdom. A delay leads to preparation, and a quiet opportunity leads to a breakthrough that once felt impossible. Even the smallest moments of a day can hold meaning when viewed through the lens of faith. A decision to keep believing, a prayer spoken in sincerity, or a heart filled with gratitude can turn a simple day into the first step of a miracle that continues unfolding long after that day has passed.